February 25th, 2026, NASA releases images from the James Webb Space Telescope showing a nebula that looks like a human brain suspended in space. Scientists call it the exposed cranium, and some researchers are asking, what if the universe itself is a living organism? That same day, a researcher affiliated with the Autonomous University of Barcelona publishes a paper claiming the Great Pyramids of Giza weren't built by the ancient Egyptians. He says they're 12,000 years old and constructed by a lost super civilization with technology we still don't understand. 2 days earlier, on February 23rd, scientists announced they've discovered bacteria frozen in a Romanian ice cave for 5,000 years. It's resistant to 10 modern antibiotics, and it's raising questions about whether life on Earth might have extraterrestrial origins. And this week, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth confirmed that the Pentagon is actively working on President Trump's directive to declassify government files on UFOs and aliens. He said they're, quote-unquote, digging in, while the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, or AERO, now has over 2,000 UAP cases in its database. Ancient bacteria that shouldn't exist? A brain-shaped nebula suggesting the cosmos is alive? A 12,000-year-old pyramid mystery that rewrites human history? And the U.S. government is moving forward with UFO declassification. All of it happened in the last 7 days. Welcome back to Infinite Rabbit Hole. What's up, everyone? I'm Jeremy Sosha, and you're listening to the Infinite Rabbit Hole, your briefing on the unexplained. Today, I'm joined by my co-hosts Jake and CJ, and we've got a packed episode tonight. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and leave us a rating and review. It helps more people find the show. You can find us on infiniterabbithole.com, Facebook, Instagram, X, and YouTube. And if you're watching on YouTube right now, make sure you're subscribed to the Infinite Rabbit Hole podcast channel. We're posting video versions of every episode so you can watch along as we break down the unexplained. All right, let's get into it. We've got 3 stories in our briefing section tonight, and then we're going deep on something that just dropped 2 days ago at the time of this recording. A researcher claiming the Great Pyramids are 12,000 years old and were built by a lost advanced civilization. But first, our news briefing. In our first story, scientists in Romania just woke up bacteria that's been frozen in ice for 5,000 years. It's resistant to antibiotics we've invented in the last century, and it's fueling theories that life on Earth might have come from somewhere else. For our second story, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth confirmed this week that the Pentagon is actively working on Trump's UFO declassification order, and AERO's caseload just passed 2,000 cases. And for our final briefing, NASA releases images of a nebula that looks like a human brain floating in space. It's called the exposed cranium, and it's reviving a theory that the universe itself might be a living, conscious organism. But before that, let's check in with the guys. Jacob, what up, buddy?
Ooh, I'm so exotic now in my name.
Yeah.
Nothing. I'm excited to get into these stories. I feel like there's going to be a little bit of an overlap in conversation, especially with the first one. But yeah, it sounds pretty dope. Let's get into it. I'm ready to go.
Sweet, man. CJ,
What's up,
second
man?
show back, dude. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. I'm having a pretty good week. I'm getting into the works of David Hume right now.
Who dat?
David Hume?
Yeah, who dat?
So he's a philosopher. I actually have underneath the death whistle that I bought because of Jake.
What are you, a philosophizer?
Yeah, dude, for like years, man. Years. It's a big part of my life. So this is the complete works of Hume here. It's a pretty thick book, and I have like the Carl Jung's Red Book. I have a bookshelf full of philosophy stuff.
Ooh, Carl Jung. I know that one.
Yeah, I have his Red Book sitting here. I have
Oh, nice.
Man and His Symbols, and then Individuation, all kind of shit over there. But so David Hume and Immanuel Kant are like these two like main figures who represent different aspects of morality from a consequentialism point of view and a deontological point of view. And I just think that the whole concept of morality and where it comes from and what's moral and immoral and like the different lines of thought are like super interesting. And those two are like the giants when it comes to morality. So reading their works is really interesting.
For sure. I always thought it was pronounced Carl Jung, but
it's Jung. Yeah, it's Jung.
No, he's definitely a titan in that field and many others. Honestly,
Jung touches morality, but he's more about the process of individuation. Assimilating aspects of the shadow, separation of the ego, understanding the self, attaining the higher self, and understanding the higher truths, things like that. His teacher was Freud, until he separated from Freud and came up with his own ideas, about what the ego is and whatnot. But no, Hume and Kant are really, really cool. They kind of go hand in hand, I guess, a little bit like Friedrich Nietzsche. A little bit. Nietzsche is really, really hard to understand, though. I've read one of his works so far, and it was not easy, and I could have really used Cliff Notes.
Well,
good thing there's AI now. Hey,
dude, I'm not even sure AI understands it. Like, and then like when you read Nietzsche's work, like you have to like understand that like when he died and his sister obtained all of his stuff, she published his work and then added her own stuff to it and published it under his name. So like the super racist stuff in the books was actually his sister.
Poop.
Yeah. Well, no, it's pretty bad actually. But yeah.
I've got a few things to announce before we move on. Big news for me is I finally got my edited version of my book back from my editor today. So the Elmwood book will be out soon. Just got to do the edits that he requested, and I'll start looking at self-publishing and get that out. Hopefully before an event that I'm going to officially announce that I'm a part of. It's already been officially announced through the organizer, but I want to announce it to my listeners so that if they're in the area, they can come out and say, hey, I'm doing this right here. Let me share the screen for those that are watching. If you're not watching, check out youtube.com/Infinite Rabbit Hole Podcast. This is the Wisconsin Caps website, wisconsincaps.com, and they are having a cryptid and paranormal convention on May 9th in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, and I will be there as a special guest speaker. You can see this little guy right here, that picture, that's me, right underneath the Cheesehead Sasquatch. Gotta love it. They're going to have a Bigfoot hike on May 8th, and one guy who's been on this show before, Barnaby Jones, is leading that. And for those that are familiar with cryptozoology and those that study it, this guy right here, Ken Gerhard, is kind of a titan. He's the guy, the other guy that wears the black hat, other than Lyle Blackburn, who was on our show just a few months ago. Coming down, you can see the entire lineup of speakers and everything else that's going on there. And there is your guy, me. I will be talking about UFOs, specifically CE5, or Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. I am going to be part of that panel there. So by all means, I highly recommend come out and check us out. Come shake my hand. Hopefully the book's out by then and you can snag yourself a copy of the book. But if not, at least come say, hey, Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, May 9th, the day right before Mother's Day.
If you let me buy the very first actual like hardcover book and sign it, I will reference it in the next 10 episodes. So that you don't have to be like, this reminds me of this crazy book I've been reading. And I'll pull it out.
That, Jeremy?
And I'll be like,
yeah, I hear.
He's gonna shill the shit out of you. You're gonna sell at least one copy. I'm gonna steal it, but he's gonna buy it.
Oh, you won't survive the interaction. It's like What does that mean exactly? I don't know.
Well, no, I've already stolen the book. It's fine. I already have it.
All right.
I didn't talk about physically stealing it. That's your copy. You could buy that. It's
Oh, all right, good. He's just gonna download it off the dark web. I'll
it's already
upload it
got.
so you can
It's already
download it.
happened. I convinced Jeremy to send it to me. Uber hacker.
Not sure if I'm going to do a hardcover yet. I don't know how that works. I haven't done that research yet, but
You put cardboard
we'll see.
on the first page and you staple it to it, and it's a hardcover.
All right. Well, we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
Anyways, you guys ready to jump into the news? All right. In the depths of Scary Sawara Cave in Romania sits one of the world's largest underground glaciers. It's a massive block of ice roughly the size of 40 Olympic swimming pools that started forming about 13,000 years ago. Scientists drilled a 45-meter ice core from the cave, which revealed a frozen record spanning thousands of years. And buried in a layer of that ice, they found something extraordinary. A bacterial strain called Psychrobacter SC65A-3. The research was published in the journal Frontiers in Microbiology on February 21st, 2026. Here's what makes this discovery significant. The researchers tested this ancient bacterium against 28 modern antibiotics from 10 different drug classes. Drugs we use to treat everything from tuberculosis, urinary tract infections, skin infections, and serious bacterial diseases. The bacterium was resistant to 10 of the 28 antibiotics. Now, for those unfamiliar with how antibiotics work, these are drugs designed to kill bacteria or stop them from multiplying. When you get a bacterial infection, antibiotics target specific mechanisms in the bacteria, like breaking down their cell walls or blocking their ability to reproduce. They're one of modern medicine's most important tools. But when bacteria become resistant, those drugs stop working. The bacteria survive, multiply, and spread, and we lose our ability to treat infections that were once easily curable. That's why antibiotic resistance is considered one of the biggest threats to global health, and that's why finding resistance in a 5,000-year-old bacterium is so significant. This microbe has been frozen in ice for 5,000 years, long before penicillin was discovered, long before modern medicine existed, and yet it carries resistance to drugs like trimethoprim, clindamycin, and metronidazole, and others that were developed in the 20th century. Genetic analysis revealed the strain contains over 100 genes linked to antibiotic resistance. Dr. Christina Porchia, senior scientist at the Institute of Biology, Bucharest, said this, quote, studying microbes such as Psychrobacter SC65A-3 retrieved from millennia-old cave ice deposits reveal how antibiotic resistance evolved naturally in the environment, long before modern antibiotics were ever used. So what does this actually mean? Well, first, it challenges the narrative that antibiotic resistance is purely a result of modern drug overuse. This bacterium proves that resistance mechanisms existed in nature thousands of years before humans invented antibiotics. Bacteria have been locked in a chemical arms race for millions of years, producing and resisting antibacterial compounds as part of Earth's natural ecology. But here's where it gets interesting for the Fringe science community. This discovery is fueling Panspermia theories, or the idea that life on Earth may have extraterrestrial origins. Panspermia suggests that microorganisms, or the building blocks of life, can survive in space and be transported between planets, moons, or even star systems via comets, asteroids, or interstellar dust. When these objects impact a planet, they could seed it with life. And bacteria like Psychrobacter SC65A-3 show us that microbial life can survive extreme conditions. Frozen for millennia, resistant to environmental threats, carrying genetic information that seems almost preloaded, if you will. Some researchers argue that if bacteria can carry advanced resistance genes without prior exposure to modern antibiotics, it raises the question, where did that genetic information come from? Now, mainstream scientists would say it's just natural selection over millions of years. But Panspermia advocates point to discoveries like this and ask, what if these organisms didn't originate here? What if they arrived on Earth already equipped with survival mechanisms honed on another world? There's also a more immediate concern. Dr. Purkuria warned, quote, if melting ice releases these microbes, these genes could spread to modern bacteria, adding to the global challenge of antibiotic resistance. As the planet warms and glaciers melt, we could be releasing ancient organisms and ancient genetic code back into the environment, organisms that modern medicine wasn't designed to handle. On the flip side, the discovery could help us. The bacterium produces unique enzymes and antimicrobial compounds that could inspire new drugs. It also carries nearly 600 genes with unknown functions. There's a lot we don't understand about what the ancient microbe is capable of. So here's the bottom line. Scientists just revived a 5,000-year-old bacterium that's resistant to drugs we invented in the last 100 years. It's raising questions about the origins of life on Earth, the natural history of antibiotic resistance, and what other ancient microbes might be waiting in the ice. So, my question, Jake, CJ, do you think this supports the panspermia theory, or is this just nature doing what it's always done? Let's go Jake first, because I believe that's going to be the quickest.
You'd be wrong. Two things. Yes. Organic matter, bacteria, some simple organisms, yes, have been known to survive incredibly harsh climates and conditions. Whether that's the removal of oxygen or just the absolute most freezing temps or, setting it on fire, things like that. Some things just do survive, right? Or have learned to adapt over time, or we're just made to be that way. I mean, I don't know. It's just a toss-up, really. The idea that they came from other planets, I mean, you know how I feel about that. But it's interesting that you did it in this order, because here shortly you're going to talk about how the pyramids were 12,000 years old and not made by the Egyptians and made instead by an advanced civilization. So you mean an advanced civilization that could have been doing antimicrobial and antibacterial treatments and making resistant bacteria, and then some of that got frozen and not completely wiped out in whatever, the ice age or the flood or something like that, right? Is that what
you're
Jake
telling me?
Swinging with the left hook
just
tonight. Saying, like here I have, like, I'm about to listen to two different scientists in two totally different fields, basically coming to the same conclusion, or not the same conclusion, two different conclusions around the same topic, but in their own specialized fields, right? One will say, well, it came from another planet. The other one's going to say, well, an advanced civilization made these guys, made these pyramids. That's all that they could do was just make, 90-degree blocks and transport these, massive stones from wherever they came from. They didn't do anything else. That's all that they did. They didn't have any other technologies or any other, like, germ theory or anything like that. I mean, it's just, kind of begs the question, is like, is this something that we could say, oh, it came from somewhere else? Or could we say it came from right here, from a civilization that, was way more advanced than us, and we're just kind of, as we go through archaeology and through the study of the earth, and as far as we know it, we're running into those footprints, those ancient footprints of whoever was here before what we would consider modern man or recorded history, right? I don't know. It's kind of a toss-up.
Wow. I like how you know me. Like, I typically would do this stuff in chronological order or something that makes sense, but the reason why I didn't do it today is because the pyramids it's our deep dive.
Yeah.
That's the only reason, is because we're doing it last because it's the deep dive.
Now, I mean, that's not to take anything from your deep dive. I mean, I'm sure we'll have plenty to talk about there too.
Yeah,
but
we will.
I can see the parallels, right? I can see that, like I said, two scientists in their two separate fields coming at the same topic in what they see, but coming to a different conclusion.
I like it.
And for me,
CJ.
one is way more, likely than the other.
CJ, what do you think, bud?
Honestly, Jake is cooking on that one. I can't add anything to that. It's 100% exactly what I'm thinking. It doesn't make sense that if we have this like advanced civilization, because the more I look into the idea that there was a high-tech civilization before ours existing, and like the evidence to support that, everything Jake said makes total sense. And really, I don't know why we can't just leave that bacteria frozen and go back to eating bats. That seems to be our way of getting new bacteria.
Dude,
so
every time something gets pulled out of the dang ice, I'm like, we've had Jurassic Park movies for like 30 years now, guys. What are you doing?
Right, like we've got enough we've got enough problems with the germs that we create, right?
No crap, yeah.
On purpose. The ones we create on purpose.
Right.
Like we don't really need to dig up the ones that this past civilization was dealing with and oh, hey guys, look what we found. Good, put it back. We have enough problems. Like
now that's not to say that nature doesn't adapt, because assuredly it does, right? It adapts in all kinds of ways. And so yes, it is possible that we could invent something like a drug that fights a specific type of bacteria and then come across a bacteria that's more advanced than the simple ones that we've been fighting off, like the flu or I don't know, chlamydia or something like that.
But
right?
like doesn't bacteria
that's-
become like drug resistant
Yes.
like through like it evolves and like morphs
Right,
as it's
yeah, it
exposed to
just-
different drugs. So
yeah.
like naturally most bacteria and viruses or whatever, well not viruses don't really get affected by drugs, like bacteria and whatnot, they're not naturally immune to most of our drugs. Like they develop that as like
Right.
as adaptations to continue its own survival. So the fact that this thing is like super immune to 10 of our drugs, it doesn't seem naturally occurring.
I would ask, because obviously I'm not the guy for this, but I would ask what I don't understand necessarily how a drug is made that is able to defeat these types of bacterias. Like, what concoction of stuff is the thing that's able to defeat that? Like, if it's just a line of genetic code, like an mRNA type thing or whatever it is, that's able to beat out this other line of genetic code, is it possible that since all drugs, really anything that we have is somehow in the earliest form derived from the earth itself, right? Even if it's, microchips, comes from the earth in some way, shape, or form. Is that the same thing with germ theory, that the drugs that we have come from the earth? So it's possible that there could be germs out there that are just immune or have adapted to dealing with those types of ingredients over time that are inside the drugs. And because there's one thing that they are immune to, then the whole drug in itself doesn't work. Like,
It's totally possible.
Does that make
dude.
sense? What I'm
It's totally possible, dude. Because like you said, all of our drugs come from natural sources, right?
Right.
So
yeah.
like, and people well before our time were using those natural sources because they had some level of efficacy in helping them feel better when they were sick. So
Right.
like we had like rudimentary stuff that they were using honey and ash and charcoal and stuff like that. So and then like there's all kinds of different like roots and flowers and all kinds of things that have natural healing properties and antibacterial properties to them. And I mean, back in the day, they called that witchcraft, right? And now we call it medical science. So
It's still witchcraft, but yeah.
essentially, sure, yeah. But yeah, I mean, like if they were exposing this bacteria to like rudimentary things that not as effective as the drugs we have, because like our drugs are refined, right? We take
Right.
those ingredients, we refine them, and we
Right,
make them powerful.
You're not taking a whole clove of garlic with some water anymore, yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Like, or like, just downing like gallons of honey and hoping for the best.
Right.
But like, you have those things and like these roots that have these naturally occurring chemicals. And I'm sure you could have exposed it and maybe it has like a mild like resilience.
Mm-hmm.
But like, it's essentially like, they have like like a roofing nail, right? And they were hitting it with a standard hammer. And our modern day drugs are like hitting that same roofing nail with a sledgehammer.
Right.
Right. So it's still strange that the bacteria would be resistant to those drugs, even with like evolved or adapted resistances to like rudimentary
Sure.
and like archaic forms of treatment.
Definitely.
Well, I think we hammered that one out.
With a sledgehammer.
I see what you did there.
All right, you guys ready to move on?
Yes.
All right, briefing number 2. Last week, we covered President Trump's February 20th directive ordering the Pentagon to declassify government files on UFOs and aliens. This week, we got confirmation that it's actually happening. On February 23rd, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth was asked directly about the declassification order during a visit to Sierra Space in Colorado. Here's what he said, quote, "We've got our people working on it right now. I don't want to oversell how much time it will take, but we're digging in." He added that his team will be in full compliance with Trump's instructions and told reporters to stand by for updates. This is significant. Hegseth admitted he didn't have this task on his bingo card for this year, but he's publicly confirming that the Pentagon is actively identifying and preparing to release files. Shortly after Trump's announcement, Pentagon spokesman Sean Parnell said the Department of Defense, quote, "looks forward to working with the interagency to fulfill the president's directive." And Hegseth himself posted a screenshot of Trump's order on social media with an alien emoji and a saluting emoji. So this isn't being dismissed or delayed, it's being treated as a legitimate directive. Now, here's some additional context that just came out this week. The Pentagon's All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, or AERO, has now logged over 2,000 UAP cases in its database. That's the office Congress created in 2022 to investigate unidentified anomalous phenomena. It launched under the Biden administration, and its caseload has been steadily growing. AERO officials briefed Congress early on and issued several reports documenting UAP sightings, but recently they've been tight-lipped. They haven't published their 2025 annual report or the second volume of reports on government involvement with UAP. So the fact that the caseload has surpassed 2,000 cases and the fact that Trump is now ordering declassification suggests there's a lot more data than the public has seen. Christopher Mellon, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Intelligence, said this about Trump's order, quote, "This might be a consequential moment, but the impact will depend on the follow-through." He's right. The question isn't whether Trump issued the directive. He did. He did that for sure. The question is what actually gets released and when. Trump's order doesn't specify a timeline. It doesn't say what information will be disclosed or how much will be redacted. It just directs the Secretary of Defense and other agencies to, quote, "begin the process of identifying and releasing files." So what happens next? Well, there are a few possibilities. The Pentagon could release files confirming that UAP are real and that they've been tracked for decades and that their origin is unknown. That would be significant. It wouldn't necessarily be shocking. We already know this from congressional testimony and AERO reports. Or they could go further. They could confirm the existence of recovered materials. They could acknowledge that analysis suggests non-human manufacturing. They could admit that reverse engineering efforts have been underway. That would be a major step. It would confirm that the U.S. government possesses physical evidence of non-human technology. Or, and this is the scenario that would fundamentally change everything, they could confirm that non-human intelligence exists, that contact has been established. that recovered craft and potentially biological entities are real. Which scenario is most likely? That depends on what the government actually knows and what they're willing to admit. But here's what we can say with confidence. Trump wouldn't have issued this directive unless he's prepared to release something. He understands optics. We went over this last week. If he orders declassification and nothing significant comes out, it makes him look foolish. It makes the directive meaningless. So either he knows there's something substantial to release, or he's confident that even limited disclosures will satisfy public interest and allow him to claim he's being transparent. Now, Harvard astronomer Avi Loeb, who's briefed Congress on UAP and leads the Galileo project searching for extraterrestrial technology, said this, quote, "One step that can be taken immediately is to declassify events from 50 years ago. Technologies used half a century ago are no longer strategically sensitive. Releasing older data could significantly advance scientific research." Now, to me, that's a reasonable approach. Declassify old files that don't compromise current national security and let scientists analyze them. But some experts are skeptical. Former AERO director Sean Kirkpatrick said people expecting evidence of alien life will be, quote unquote, disappointed. He called Trump's order a distraction for administration and predicted that people will cry conspiracy and claim there's a cover-up no matter what gets released. He might be right, or he might be wrong. What we know is this: the Pentagon is actively working on Trump's declassification order. AERO has over 2,000 UAP cases in its files, and the disclosure conversation has officially shifted from if to when. So Jake, CJ, let's see if anything has changed in your opinions on this. Do you think the Pentagon will actually release significant information, or is this just a political move that ends with redacted files we've already seen? CJ, go with you first, bud.
We're never going to get more than the tip of the iceberg. No matter what they say is declassified, it's all false flag, psyop, fucking bullshit. They're never going to tell us what we actually want to know. It's like when you're training a dog, right? And you want certain behaviors out of it. You never give it the full begging strip. You give it a little piece off of it until it starts to respond. And then it gets used to just getting that little piece, and that little piece is good enough. And then eventually you don't give it shit. You just click a little thing when it does what you say. And then eventually you don't even do that anymore. So we're never going to get the full story. We're just going to have to be okay with the fact that they're going to give us the smallest piece of the pie that they absolutely can get away with without us bitching.
Yeah, well, here's where I agree with CJ. I mean, regardless of what gets declassified, people are going to hate Trump regardless because, like we discussed last week, without going full bore back into it, I mean, the amount of information that the president actually has versus all the people that work underneath him is very limited. So they're going to say that Trump is creating a psyop when in reality it's the Pentagon that's creating the psyop because they have the information, or, you know, the Department of War has the information, or whatever, right? It's just I stand by what I said last week. I truly believe that he is serious and that he wants information to be released, but then he also has to have people that work underneath him that are going to be willing to release that information. And I don't think that we're going to get anything substantial that's just going to blow the lid off the whole thing. Like if it's even possible that we do have worldly or other dimensionally, other dimensional craft that we are reverse engineering, there is no way because of national security that would ever get out and released to the public unless through a whistleblower, in which case everyone could just be like, I don't know what he's talking about. He's insane. He's crazy. Oh, look, he just died in a car accident. Weird. It's just like, it'll never just come out. They won't ever say that because in the grand scheme of things, regardless of how the individual that's listening or either of you feel about the other countries that take up the face of this earth, in their minds, they cannot allow them to get a hold of that information. And the easiest way for them to do that is through Google or through, a release of information, as if Russia and China aren't watching our news, newscasting 24/7 to see if anything leaks out that they can use against us or
Like,
not.
yes,
But
what
the
do you got?
belief is there, right? Even if
Yep.
that isn't happening, the belief and the fear is there. So, yeah, I don't see anything crazy coming from it. Although it would be cool to have more talking points here on the podcast for more, types of UAPs, because who's to say that the only thing we have is like balls and TikToks and rods and things like that, or TikToks, Tic Tacs and rods and things like that. Maybe there's, a Nazi bell flying about. Who knows? I don't know. That'd be kind of cool to have a talking point and be like, wow, this is interesting. So
The truth is, space is fake. Those aren't spacecraft. They're interdimensional craft, and they're never going to tell us that.
Jeff, sit down.
yeah, I agree. Yep, most definitely. The Van Allen radiation belt, no one can get past it, not even them.
If you're new to listening here, not everyone on this show thinks that space is fake. I, for one, think space is real.
I think space is real. I don't think the space station is real.
I think the space station is real.
I think it's a set.
It's just not. It's not as far. Well, obviously, it's not as far as people think it is.
Something up there ain't right about that, because they always say there's like all that space debris, and like this tiny little trunk is flying so fast that it would absolutely demolish stuff if it hit it. Like, how do they dodge all that shit?
Not just that, but like a pebble, something the size of a dime. If that thing is flying as fast as they say it is, and it contacts something the size of a dime, it's just going to shoot right through it. Most of it's just sheet metal. It's there's a ton of insulation on there and everything, but out of all the documentaries that I've watched on the space station, it's surprisingly thin.
I actually agree with Jeff. That's why I said, I don't think that space itself is fake, but I don't think they're actually truthful with us about what it actually is up there.
I don't agree with Jeff on space is fake. Now, he'll say that he's talking hyperbolically, and whatever. I think he flip-flops on that. Sometimes I think he legitimately thinks space is super fake, like fake. One argument I do like that he brings up, this is off topic a little bit, but the whole fact that all the nations can behave together up in the space station, but not down here on Earth, it's actually quite hilarious.
Yeah, well, I mean, that makes sense. It's a much smaller group, right? The more people you get together, they start clicking, and then they find reasons to hate another group. Like, that's just human nature. So, but you have a very small group up there, chances are they're going to work relatively well together.
Plus the fear of being ejected through the trash dump space lock is pretty high, right? It's
right.
It's like if I had a knife and you had a knife, and at any point one of us could get stabbed, how polite would you act?
Right, FAFO is a real thing up there.
It's like at any point I could just trip you into the airlock and eject you into space. Oh crap, that's weird. I didn't know that would happen.
But yeah, I actually really do.
Space toilets.
I really do think that most of the UAPs we see are actually interdimensional craft and not outer spacecraft anyway. And I really don't think they'll ever tell us that, because that would confirm multiverse theory. And if like they know for a fact that that's true, they'll never, ever tell us that that's true.
We should do an episode one time where we just discuss that, because I've got a shit ton of information. I am right on board with you. If anybody is familiar with John Keel's ultra-terrestrial theory, that's the thing that makes the most sense to me. And if anybody wants that episode, leave a comment. Let us know. We could talk about it. I can break it down for anybody who's really interested in it, and I can break it down in a way that makes sense.
Wait, why does that matter? We want the episode. Come on.
I don't care about the listeners at this point. Come on, dude.
Fuck that. Let's do it because we want to do it.
Well, maybe we'll make it I could potentially make it a Project Jackalope episode. We'll kick that one around.
The crappy thing too is, because I'm sitting here thinking, because I agree with CJ. I think that there's not I think there's multi-parallels, like multi-dimensions, not in the way of like at some point, at some place in the multiverse, there's a Jacob Owens that's sitting here doing a podcast right now, except I have, 5 arms because the 6th doesn't work right instead of 2 arms, right? I don't think of it like that, but that there's multiple dimensional planes. But what would be gained? The thought process in my head is what would be gained by that information being kept a secret besides just being like, we're better than those peons because we know information that would blow up their tiny little brains and we're not going to give it to them. And that
Makes sense
seems the
to not
most
tell
likely.
us. It makes sense to not
Wouldn't
tell
do
us
it
because of control.
because they felt superior in knowing and we didn't.
It's
So-
control. There'd be if they confirmed that there was a multiverse and that not only was there a multiverse, but there are beings who can travel the multiverse, the entire planet would panic. It would be absolute pandemonium because no one would want to deal with that because we don't have the technology. At least as far as citizens are concerned, we don't have the technology to transverse those dimensions ourselves. So if there was to be like an attack for whatever reason, resources or whatever, we would have no way to fight back against that. And that's horrifying.
Well, it would certainly break down the idea that the government's main job of any government, which they do or they do not, depends, but the government's main job is to protect the citizens of that country. And if they can't provide protection, then what good are they? Why
Right.
listen to them? Why follow their rules? So, yeah, I could see that. That makes sense.
Yeah. It's all about control and keeping us complacent, at least while they're trying to figure out. Maybe they're developing a way to do it. Maybe that's what that bell Jeremy brought up before was for. Because as far as I know, when it comes to like the Nazi bell, like they don't actually know what they wanted to use it for. Like they have theories like time travel and stuff, but they never actually confirmed what the idea was behind that device. Maybe he was trying to travel dimensions.
Maybe.
There's
Find
a
Jews
lot
in
of
other
weird-
dimensions.
That's messed up.
Maybe that's what the TR3B
Nazis
is
were
for.
messed up. All right.
Yeah, true. All right.
Yeah.
Fair
Well, we have
enough.
Hollow Earth, and there's a lot of fucking things in there.
Yeah. Big
Okay,
feet.
I'm gonna take a second to just kind of break off and give you a quick analogy of the ultra-terrestrial theory that I think would help out with at least getting people interested in the idea. So we've discussed ad nauseum about UFOs and their incredible ways of moving, right? They can move at speeds and velocities that a human body cannot withstand within our gravitational field, right? Here on Earth, 1G is what we feel. Wherever you're sitting, pretty much, you're feeling 1G, one gravitational unit. Anything faster than that, or anything faster than I think is 13 humans start to pass out and bone structure starts to degrade. UFOs, UAP, whatever you want to call them, have been documented at moving up to 19 Gs. Extremely fast. Now, we can't survive that. We can't fly at 19 and do a perfect 90-degree angle. We can't immediately stop and restart. So here's the analogy. Imagine this is a petri dish. And for those that aren't watching right now, I'm holding up like a little Post-it note thing. Okay. Now, if this petri dish has bacteria on it, okay, and I'm a scientist, I'm looking at this petri dish. The bacteria on here has a life cycle of 5 minutes. Everything that they have to do within their lifetime is be born, reproduce, grow old, and die. 5 minutes long. If I take an instrument like this pen here and I touch the petri dish, how would that be perceived to the bacteria? Let's say that they have a sentience that's close to humans. They're intelligent. Okay, they're capable of communicating, of documenting history, of documenting events. What would this pen tip look like in the petri dish? It would look like it just came out of nowhere. to a bacterium. Now, if I remove the pen, it would look like something just disappeared. What I'm trying to do is give you an analogy of a 2D world, a two-dimensional world, okay? X and Y axis, that's pretty much it, all right? That's the analogy for the bacteria here. As I touch the Petri dish, the world in which this bacteria lives in, and I remove the pen from the Petri dish, it looks to the bacteria as if something just appears and disappears. Now, let's say 20 minutes goes by and I grab a new tool. Here I go. I got the back end of this pen here. It's the back end of this red pen. And now I touch it because I want to see how the bacteria is going to react to that. Now, remember, the bacteria sees time on a different scale than what we do. Okay, they live their whole life in 5 minutes. We don't. Okay, we live it in an average of 80 to 100 years in human terms, the way we perceive time. Now, their 5 minutes feels like a lifetime. But what's only taken 20 minutes for us has taken 4 generations that has gone by for this bacteria. So the pen touches the pad or touches the Petri dish, and they see another object appear. Well, they're freaking out. They're running around. They're like, what's going on? Well, they head to the library and they find out that some crazy man from 20 years ago, comparison to how we would perceive it, it'd be 4 generations behind, wrote down in this library that they saw this weird object just appear and then disappear. And that's what we did, right? We put the pen tip on the Petri dish, watched how the bacteria reacted to it, and we put it away. Now, they write down and they say, this happened. They appeared. They disappeared. The same stuff that we see UFOs and UAP do all the time. And we see it in different forms. We can see it as a metallic disc-shaped object. We could see it as a light. We could see it as a cigar shape. We could see it as a big giant triangle. Tons of shit. Now, me, as the scientist, I don't have a way to communicate with the bacteria. Okay? I can't speak bacterium. They can't speak English or human. Okay? We don't have a way to communicate. The best way that I can talk to them is by taking my tool and seeing how they react and building from there. Now I take that tool and I'm like, hey, I want to see how they react if I move it a little bit. What does this look like to you guys? What would that look like to bacteria if I moved them? It would look like a UAP, right? If I took my tool and touched the Petri dish and I just went like this, it would look like UAP does to us, okay? This, and I'm not going to go any further than that, but there is a lot more to talk about here because I want to get back to the episode. But that is the ultra-terrestrial theory at its most elementary point, as said by John Keel. If you guys want a really good deep dive into what he's talking about, I highly recommend Operation Trojan Horse. That's the book where he really dives into that. But you can also look at the Eighth Tower, even talks about it a little bit in Mothman Prophecies. Shit, any book that he really writes, other than Jadu, is something where he will talk about the ultra-terrestrial theories.
What I've gathered is Jeremy now thinks Galactus is poking us with a pen.
I don't know what that is.
Yes.
Okay, thanks, Jake.
Yes.
What is that? Fill me in. Come on. What is
Galactus is an ultra-terrestrial that consumes planets in the Marvel universe.
Oh, yeah, I definitely didn't know that. I'm the other kind of nerd. So what do you guys think about that?
He means dork, but
nothing?
Yes.
I don't think there's some giant being poking us with a pen.
It wouldn't even have to be a giant being. It'd just be a being in another dimension, or, something from a higher dimension. I would say the 4th dimension, right? Just because we live in a 3-dimensional space. We live in 3 dimensions of space and 1 dimension of time.
Mm-hmm.
Time is not the 4th dimension. It is just a dimension of a separate category. So we live in 3 dimensions of space and 1 dimension of time. The 4th dimension of space, the only shape that we can even conceive and we don't even know if it's 100% right, is the Tesseract. It's, if you Google a Tesseract, that is, CJ, can you bring up a picture of the Tesseract?
I'm going to definitely get something from the Transformers movie when I do this.
You will, but just bring up Tesseract shape. If you look at it, Tesseract.
Tesseract. Another thing from the Marvel movies.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. That's Tesseract. That black and white one right there is probably the best way to kind of show the layman what a Tesseract is in a nutshell. And even that is our three-dimensional mind creating a four-dimensional object. That's the best way that we can do it. That may not even be correct. It may not even be anywhere near correct. But mathematically, that's a four-dimensional object.
Do you think it's just like interdimensional, like trolls, right? Like this is their version of cow tipping. They're like, you guys want to see something funny? And they just blip over here and watch us scatter like roaches. And then they go back and they have a good giggle about it. This
is literally John Keel's argument. Literally. No, I'm serious. Beyond that, there's the cosmic trickster theory, which is almost a parallel explanation of John Keel's ultra-terrestrial theory. Just more of jokesters and pranksters.
I mean, you guys know that I'm a Christian guy, and I worship a God that I believe is outside of our space and time, and what you could consider the fourth dimension, or maybe the 50th dimension. I don't know. But is outside of that. And I also believe that there's beings out there that are also outside of that transcend, maybe can't look at time in the same way the creator could, from, where everything's on the same, maybe a loop where he could just see it all at any point, like watching a DVD or a VHS. He could just go forward and go back and whatever he wants to do at any point and see everything that has ever happened with any human being on Earth, but that they would have be able to maybe go back and forth, or maybe they can just go outside of our plane but are on the same time frame, but are just eternal in the sense that once they were created they can't be uncreated. So I mean, yes, I to a limited amount of what you talked about, yes, I agree. I don't think that it would be so much as that God is sticking his fingertip into our sky and going like this, being like, woo! Not to say he couldn't if he didn't want to, but I don't think that's the point. But then, something to what CJ said, an interdimensional being just being like, hey, you want to go tip some cows? Check this out. Why couldn't the demons be doing that to create confusion, deception, fear, panic, things like that in their cow tipping sort of way? In what we would talk about. So yeah, I agree with what you're talking about.
Now,
and I would say that UAPs are interdimensional beings in that sense, coming into our space just to screw with us. Then yes.
Just real quick question for Jake, real quick before you get in there, Jeremy. Just because I'm curious to know what you think. So like as a reptile keeper, right? I have 14 lizards. Okay, and each
you have
cage.
A problem. Is that what you wanted me to say?
I don't have a problem. Listen,
a lot of addicts say that. I don't have a problem. Everyone else has a problem.
I mean, it's fair. I guess you could say I'm addicted to reptiles. I've been addicted since I was 4 years old. But anyway, each individual cage, right, is set up in a different biome relative to what that specific lizard needs.
Yeah.
So do you think it's possible that like this dimension is our enclosure and that God also has other various enclosures where he keeps different various sets of beings, and then every once in a while you get those lizards that figure out how to get the fuck out of their cage and they go in somebody else's cage and it causes problems, and you got to figure out what they're doing to make them stop,
like an octopus escaping its aquarium and eating all the fish in another one. Yeah,
right. Do you think it's possible that maybe God is doing something like that? Like, all right, I have humans here, and then I have whatever this is over here, and I have this over there, and I have that over there, and here's the dimension of demons because I created them for funsies or whatever it is, the reason that happened, and And like, you think that's possible, or do you not subscribe to that idea at all?
Certainly, it could be possible, but unless the disclosure happens, who knows?
Well, we would never be able to
You know?
disclose that. God would have to come down directly and be like, "Sit down, President Trump." And I
No,
swear,
not even.
I swear, if God came down and personally talked to Trump and not the rest of us, I'd be so upset.
Well,
So upset.
not necessarily even that. Certainly, it could be possible that, like you were just kind of theorizing there. Yeah, I mean, it could be possible, and it could be that the demons are supposed to be in their area, but as defiant creatures, and the reason why they are considered demonic beings and not angelic beings is because they're prideful and fell with Lucifer, that
Sneaky and defiant and get out of their
say,
cage.
"Screw you, God, I don't care what you have to say, I'm gonna do what I want," because that's in their nature to do so, because they're already gonna be damned for eternity anyway, so why not just do as much as chaos as they can until that point happens, right? Certainly that could be a thing, or it could be the thing that our universe, our solar system, or whatever it is our terrarium, and that there's other terrariums out there, and maybe they have their form of Jesus, and maybe they don't because they never sinned. Like, who's to say, right? But we won't know any of that stuff unless that sort of disclosure comes down, because as far as we know, yeah, the government has UFOs and aliens and things like that, or they could come out and straight up say it, be like, "Oh yeah, we're all in a demonic death cult and we've been talking to the demons and that's how we have this technology. It's not aliens, it's interdimensional beings that you would call demons, or we even call demons, but they're giving us this information and this is how we're able to make it." Because they're telling us stuff that defy physics in this universe that God wouldn't want us to know, but they're doing it anyway because they don't care what God has to say. It could be that too. It could be way on the left field or way on the right field, but unless disclosure happens, we won't know either way, and we can just speculate.
And even if disclosure happens, who says we believe it?
True. There's that too.
It definitely would not. I would call bullshit immediately, because I'm just assuming anything they tell us is bullshit because they don't want us to know the truth.
But we know that from like CERN, right? They said that they were able to, Jeremy knows the quote because he's really big into it, but they were able to get information from another dimension, right? Is basically what they said, paraphrasing. What does that mean, right? Does that mean that they were in communication with other dimensional beings, or that they opened up a portal to another dimension where they can communicate with other dimensional beings? And then in that circumstance, what does that mean for the growth in technology and, I don't know, was it transhumanism and things like that happen here on this
Receiving
planet?
data or information could be anything. Like, they could have looked into another dimension and took its temperature and said we got
It could
information.
be, it could be something mild, and it could be
I
something
doubt it was
disastrous.
communication.
But they didn't say what
like
it was. They just said very vaguely information. Well,
We just
information
fired like particles of Morse code into another dimension.
information can come from all different sources. Like, you can get information through video, you can get information through speech, through written form, through sign language. Like, what does that information look like?
Right.
Dogs get it through farts.
Yeah.
The point I'm trying to make is like
that
all that information you just listed is extremely complicated forms of information, where more than likely they receive some extremely simple form, like a temperature or a single vibration or an electrical reading. Like, they didn't like that would be or like a brief blinking of light, or something like that.
could be more. I don't like, but unless they're willing to say, right, we can just speculate, right? So it's just like, I don't know. It could be a whole terrarium setup.
Two things. One, the analogy of the pen moving around on the petri dish. I just want to be clear that that's not exactly what I think is what they're doing. I literally use the pen as an analogy or a vehicle to portray the idea.
No, I get it.
So
I was just taking a stab at you. It was fun.
I want to make sure that people that are listening are also, just understanding that I'm not saying that whoever they are out there, I'm not saying that they're pranksters. I'm not saying that, it's a literal tool that they're trying to use. It could literally be something that we cannot even comprehend because it's not from our dimension. The only UFOs look like what they do, the the anomalous balls of light or the metallic objects during the day, because that's how we perceive it in our dimension. But its true nature could be something we literally can't even create a concept of.
The only problem that I would have with the example that you gave, although it was a very good example, is that even the bacteria, because we can look at like a tardigrade. A tardigrade is as small as some types of bacteria, yet it still exists in a three-dimensional form. So they are
Correct, yeah.
not outside of that. So it would be
Yeah.
way more terrifying to have something, because think of it this way: if they were able in the bacteria form somehow, maybe they can through sneezes, to become join the space race with the rest of us, to where they're, getting out of the petri dish and then going through the atmosphere and the air, I guess in the form of a cough or sneeze, they would then see the scientist in his office staring at what they would consider to be their planet, messing around with the petri dish and seeing how they reacted. And then even then, they would have to deal at that point with the idea that something comes from not space that's looking into our world as if it's a petri dish, but something that's literally invisible because we can't see it because it's on another dimensional plane. So they still exist in 3D. It's just super limited, right?
Yes.
Because they're not flat, right? I'm sure they have some kind of mass. If you could look at a bacterium, I'm sure that there's an orb or something like that, or sphere, some kind, right? So it'd be so messed up. Like, so crazy and messed up. Like,
I literally can't create
you can't
the best
comprehend it, right?
I can't create a perfect analogy. The best thing that I've ever seen anybody create a perfect analogy of the point of view from a lower dimension than the 3 dimensions is this book right here. And I highly recommend it. It's called Flatland by Edwin Abbott. This book is an entire book story written from the perspective of a 2-dimensional world. Incredible. I have it here, Jake, if you ever want to borrow it.
Yeah.
Literally, it's mind-blowing. It's absolutely great book. And it was first published, I think, in some like 1890s or something, late 1800s, maybe even early 1900s. But this book it's incredible.
Like it because it's so funny, because like, even because I understand we've, like you said, talked about this ad nauseum. Even the idea of like a piece of paper, existing in a 2D space, it's like, okay, well, the atoms in that piece of paper exist in a 3D space. Like,
correct.
There's no way to actually portray this in a way visually that would make sense, because we don't have anything that we could show visually that would make sense.
Right. We cannot create an actual 2-dimensional world because the tools that we use are 3-dimensional tools.
So strange.
What if it's more like a lake, right? Right? Like, we go to a lake, we throw something in there, get a fish's attention, yank the little bastard out of there, put our fingers in its orifices, and throw it back.
True.
We've done that.
We do put fingers in orifices, yes.
Right. So they throw something in our dimension, get one of our attention, yank one of us out, probe the living shit out of us, and then throw us back.
I mean, that's also not a bad analogy.
Their like, oh, that one saw the shiny, get his ass.
Their lures are little gray aliens, and instead of like getting our attention and then us attacking it, it's them coming to get us while we're sleeping.
Or we're standing in a field just staring at it.
I had a period of like 3 hours of missing time. Maybe I got probed in my orifice. Orify.
You sound hopeful.
I don't know, I'm a scientist.
Hopefully they kissed you at the end of the night too.
Yeah, right.
Jake, are you familiar with the Betty and Barney Hill story? They had missing time too.
Yeah,
it's like a common theme.
No, it's pretty common. It was pretty crazy.
You know what missing time has a common theme with besides alien
sleep
interactions? Possession.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, I was also a terrible person at the time, so that's probably likely as well. I mean, I wouldn't say no to that, like, which is a horrifying thought, but no, it's something else taking over my body, my mind. But yeah, that was a bad person, so I can see that.
I wasn't talking about necessarily specifically you. I was talking about the whole just missing time in general.
I cannot remember what the second thing I wanted to bring up was, so I'm just going to skip it. I cannot remember. Anyways, you guys ready for briefing number 3?
Yeah.
Now that we spent an hour
I was
on this
enjoying
one.
this conversation.
It was a good conversation.
It was good.
All right, briefing 3. On February 25th, NASA released images from the James Webb Space Telescope that are among the most stunning and otherworldly photos the observatory has captured since it launched. The subject is Nebula PMR1, nicknamed the exposed cranium, and it looks exactly like what the name suggests, a human brain suspended inside a transparent skull, floating in the depths of space. The nebula was first captured in infrared over a decade ago by NASA's now retired Spitzer Space Telescope. Spitzer scientists gave it the exposed cranium nickname back in 2013, but the image was blurry and indistinct compared to what Webb just revealed. Using 2 of its imaging instruments, NIRCam, or near-infrared camera, and MIRI, or mid-infrared instrument, the James Webb Space Telescope captured the nebula in exquisite, high-resolution detail. And the brain-like appearance is unmistakable. According to NASA, the nebula has distinct regions that capture different phases of its evolution. There's an outer shell of gas that was blown off first, consisting mostly of hydrogen, and there's an inner cloud with more structure that contains a mix of different gases. But the most striking feature is a dark vertical lane running through the middle of the nebula. It divides it into a left and right hemisphere, exactly like a human brain. NASA says this dark lane is likely the result of an outburst or outflow from the central star. Stars near the end of their life cycle often eject material in twin jets, bursting out in opposite direction. That's what appears to be happening here. The nebula surrounds a dying star, and we're watching it shed its outer layers in a dynamic, relatively rapid process, on cosmic timescales at least. Now, here's where this gets interesting beyond just the visuals. The release of these images has revitalized what's called the biocosm theory, the idea that the universe itself functions like a biological organism. This isn't a new concept. Philosophers and scientists have speculated for decades about whether the cosmos exhibits lifelike properties. But images like this, showing a nebula that looks disturbingly similar to a human brain, add fuel to the conversation. The biocosm theory suggests that the universe might not just contain life, it might actually be alive. The galaxies, stars, and cosmic structures could operate like cells, neurons, or organs in a vast, interconnected living system. Some proponents point to the large-scale structure of the universe, which resembles neural networks when you zoom out far enough. Filaments of galaxies stretching across the cosmos, connected by dark matter, forming patterns that look remarkably like the synaptic connections in a brain. Others argue that consciousness itself might be a fundamental property of the universe, not something that emerges only in biological organisms, but something woven into the fabric of reality at a cosmic scale. Now, mainstream astrophysicists would say that the resemblance between the nebula and a brain is just pareidolia, our tendency to see familiar patterns in random structures. The universe isn't designed, it's not alive, it's just physics playing out over billions of years. But for those in the consciousness research community, this image is more than just a coincidence. There's a growing body of research exploring the connection between quantum mechanics, consciousness, and the nature of reality. As we've mentioned in a recent episode, there are some physicists who argue that consciousness might arise from the quantum processes in the brain. Others suggest that consciousness could be a property of the quantum vacuum itself, the zero-point field that permeates all of space. If that's true, then maybe the universe isn't just a collection of dead matter governed by mechanical laws. Maybe it's something more, maybe it's aware. The exposed Cranium Nebula doesn't prove any of this, but it raises the question. Why does a cloud of gas and dust formed by a dying star millions of light years away look exactly like the organ we use to perceive reality? Is it just a cosmic coincidence? Or is the universe showing us something about itself? Webb's observations capture a precise moment in this star's decline. Depending on its mass, it will either end in a supernova explosion or continue shedding layers until only a dense white dwarf core remains, cooling slowly over billions of years. But the image itself, this brain-shaped structure floating in space, will likely outlive our current understanding of what consciousness is and where it comes from. So, Jake, CJ, what do you think? Is this just pareidolia, or is there something deeper going on when we see these kinds of patterns in the cosmos? Fight for who goes first.
I really don't want it to be something deeper, because when you look at that theory, like even deeper into it, like they say that, like, I think it's like galaxies behave like synapses, right? Solar systems are like a cell or whatever, or like planets are like a cell. I forget exactly how it's set up, but I do remember reading that in the event that that is like that, Earth, and with us specifically, is cancer. We behave exactly like a cancer cell. And I mean, really everything they're talking about is that whole concept of like as above, so below. It's the microcosm versus the macrocosm, and the microcosm will always mimic the macrocosm on some level, or vice versa. And it's all very, very strange. And I would find it very difficult to believe that the universe itself is alive, but like a space that contains life would make more sense to me. I don't know if that makes sense, what I'm trying to say.
It does. Jake, what do you got? You look like you got a face going on.
I'm on NASA's website right now, and I'm trying to figure out why the colors are different from when it was first exposed, or when it's first seen versus now. And I
Because
found,
those pictures are fake.
well, and that's what Jeff's always saying. Here, let me show you guys what I'm looking at. So this is science.nasa.gov, and if you go into
It's showing us black. Oh, there it goes. Now it loaded.
if you go into the images on here, you can have all this information as far as the image itself. This is image was created with Webb data from proposal 9224 M. Garcia Marin. You can click on that, and it will get you information on who exactly were the individuals that looked into this sort of stuff. So you can scroll through all this data and this information and see if it makes sense to anybody. But the thing was, Jeff was always saying that, these are
Paint by numbers.
painted, right? Paint by numbers. And so I'm getting into here, and you can go downloads for the full res image, and you can click that, and it will go into, basically like this is the blurry picture, and this is when it's high def. But then coming down here, where was it? There's a video. I was just looking at a video of.
I saw you scroll past it on that very first page you showed us when you first loaded the screen. It had like big blue letters said videos.
Right. Yeah, I don't know where it went now. I'm onto them, so they're hiding it. But basically it was a video. It was showing the original images. Maybe it's this guy. The original images, and then where they are now. And I'm wondering why it's such a. Is this it? Yeah, this original observations and then now. And it's like, why such a drastic coloration change? Like all that stuff that was on the outside is gone and stuff. And it's like, oh, it's because it was blurry. And it's like, yeah, I get it. But
I mean, it kind of looks like a brain, but it also kind of looks like a set of lungs.
well, I think that the universe is pretty much like a fractal. Like in the same way you'll see like certain types of ferns, and it's like the shape of them, it's kind of like a triangle, and each like leaflet is a triangle,
Golden
and
ratio.
getting down into it and stuff like that. In the same way, I've discussed, it might have been the debate, argument, fight Jeremy and I had with the stoned ape theory, where I might have said it, or maybe it was somewhere else, but that, why is it that our hand, 5 fingers looks like a hand, and then a whale's hand also, or whale's flipper also looks like a hand. So, and I think it's because the creator used the same code for everything in the same way. And I heard this recently from Kent Hovind. He says, if you looked at Microsoft Office and Microsoft Excel and Microsoft PowerPoint, I bet you if you looked inside the code for these 3 different programs, that the code would be pretty dang similar. And that's because it was created by the same company. He's like, in the same way, he's like, he said, I have 4,000 books in my library and they all use the same 26 letters, right? Why? Because they're written in English, because they're written by the same people, right? Or they're using the same code to write these books in the same way it would be for any other language. They'd still use the same characters, even if the ideas of this book, this is about history, and this is science fiction, and this is fantasy, and this is nonfiction, and this is, all these other things. This is the history of, ancient Egypt, and this is history of, Black history, and all that sort of stuff, but they all have the same code to them. In the same way you have all these animals that have the same DNA, although in different forms. But then you also see, similarities between my hand and the bones in a whale's flipper, right? Because it's all the same thing. So why is that to say that our brain, if the biggest issue that scientists have is like, how does the brain actually work? How does consciousness happen? All these sorts of things. But it's like the most marvelous thing that we have in existence here that's natural. But then you come way outside of just this, going back to the original point in our 3D space, and get outside of that and then into the next terrarium, so to speak, and you see a similar sort of shape and things like that. And is it because that, we're all connected in some sort of, like cosmic thought or something like that? Or could it be because whoever created it just used the same design a bunch of times? Because why reinvent it? If you were going to make a new car, I guarantee you would have some form of wheels and an engine. You wouldn't start from complete scratch, bone bare scratch to do the next thing. You'd use the building blocks you already had,
right?
to
Because
your
they're already
disposal.
effective and you already know they work,
Right. And so it's like, I think that there's a lot more parallels like that we could get into, and just, why are we so similar to primates? Well, why not? Right? And you could say, well, we're not similar to birds. And yeah, you're right. But we still have brains and lungs and hearts and guts and like all these sorts of things. It's like, we just don't look the same. Our outer dermis doesn't look the same as birds. Our bone structure doesn't look the same as birds. But when you get down to it, we still have the same organs. So
It
it's
makes
like,
a lot of sense though,
I
like
think,
especially with the hand thing you said, because like as humans, like we rely on manipulating objects in order to survive. So having 4 fingers and a thumb is like the ideal way of being able to do that. That's why we don't have 3 fingers and a thumb, because there are people that are born with 3 fingers and a thumb and they struggle to do some of the stuff that we do with 4 fingers and a thumb, right? So what you're saying makes sense. Like the whale having like the fins with the same kind of structure within that in that fin. Well, they don't need to manipulate objects; they need to move water.
right.
So even though it's a similar structure, it does a different thing. So they don't need like. See, no, what you're saying
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense. Is the point I'm trying
So
to make.
I think that I like when science can get into other realms that were previously unexplored or touched by us, whether that's the depths of the ocean or that goes into space or, whatever that looks like. Because for me, every time a discovery like this happens, for me, in my brain, it says this is the marvelousness of the creator and the creation that he's given us. And I can see his thumbprint in everything that he did because of the way he made it and how similar it is to other things. And in some ways, another person might look at that and be like, look at the way that we evolved to parallel the thing that we evolved from, right? And it's like, yeah, I mean, I guess I could see it from that perspective, but it just doesn't, the beginning of everything doesn't make any sense to me. But I like it. I mean, I think that it's pretty cool that it looks like a brain, but I know that the Milky Way galaxy doesn't look like a brain. But it sure as heck looks like a big old atom, So, maybe a more advanced atom than, maybe a carbon atom or an oxygen atom, but it sure does look like one. And it's like, well, why is that? Is it because everything evolved from that point, or is it because it's the same shape or the same design in just different forms and different functions created by the being that said, and this is the way it's going to be, Yeah, see, there you go. I wasn't even looking at the picture you brought up, but that's exactly it. I mean, the solar system looks like an atom. The Milky Way galaxy looks like a gigantic atom, right? And it's just like, why couldn't it be the exact same, look? Because it serves in some ways the same function.
Yeah, I mean, we see
maybe the universe is like that too, or maybe the universe looks like a big brain.
Maybe.
And then the whatever the things inside of our brain that control thought and all that sort of stuff and movement and you're blinking, you're breathing, everything like that, those are the different galaxies or the universes inside, all that sort of stuff is just the big function of the big brain, right? It all works together in a way we couldn't possibly comprehend because we can't get there to observe it.
It is what some of the theories think. That they think that the universe itself is a giant brain, and all these different like solar systems and galaxies and whatnot are the individual synapses,
right?
Because they behave, like I guess like the galaxies or whatever behave exactly like brain synapses do, or something like that. I forget which, if it's like neurons. I forget exactly how it is, but yeah, that's like the theory.
Well, and like what is the brain synapses? What are they made of? I mean, they're made of cells, right? And so if you can get down and down and down and down and down to where you're looking at atoms, you could look at the same thing for the entirety of the universe. If we end up getting to that point where we can observe somehow the outside of it and say, oh, it looks like a big brain, and then you get down and down and down and down and down until the atoms are the solar systems.
There's
right?
There's this line of science that looks at things where like matter doesn't actually exist, right? Like our atoms, like those particles aren't physical matter. They're particles that vibrate at different frequencies that allow it to imitate what matter would be. So then we have like these different states of matter: gases, liquids, solids. It's not actually existing. It's just particles that vibrate at the right frequency that allow it to imitate what those things would be and allow us to interact with that. And they can do it in complex forms, which gives us life and all kinds of stuff.
I mean, at that rate,
it's way, way deeper than that.
At that rate, it's exactly what we're talking about. They just call it different things. It's like saying,
you're right.
It's like saying the theory of gravity is just a theory. Okay, well, I'm still being held to my seat. So, and they're just like, well, it's just not called that. It's like, give me a Nobel Prize.
Right. Right. Well, I mean, what you're saying is like, none of this actually exists. It's
right.
just particles that vibrate correctly. And it's all an imitation of what we perceive as existence.
All I'm saying.
All right, guys, ready to move on?
If I get to heaven, I got a lot of questions because I'm a very curious person and I really want to see what it all looks like from the outside.
I'd like to sit in on that conversation. Just listen.
What's up with teeth?
What's going on, man?
Teeth all throughout their entire life and we get 2 sets? What's up with that?
We're doing all this stuff down here and you gave us the dirtiest mouths.
Yeah, right?
Things got venom. We're just dirty.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right. we are an hour and a half in and we have not started the deep dive yet. So let's go ahead and get that knocked out.
All right.
All right, guys?
Yep.
This is a good episode so far. I like this.
I agree.
Fucking
All right.
leg is sticking out.
All right, now that CJ's leg is taken care of. We've arrived at the deep dive. And this week, we're talking about something that just dropped a few days ago from when this is recorded, of course, on February 25th, 2026. A researcher affiliated with the Autonomous University of Barcelona has published a paper arguing that the Great Pyramids of Giza weren't built by the ancient Egyptians. He claims they're 12,000 years old, constructed by a lost super civilization with advanced technology that we still don't understand. His name is Antonio Ambrosio, and he is an independent researcher whose paper has not yet been peer-reviewed, but it's already making waves in the alternative history community and sparking debates among mainstream Egyptologists. So let's break this down. What's the claim? What's the evidence? And what does it mean if he's right? Ambrosio's central claim is this: the three main pyramids at Giza, the Great Pyramid of Khufu, the Pyramid of Khafre, and the Pyramid of Menkaure, were not built around 2600 BC by the 4th dynasty pharaohs. Instead, he argues they were constructed around 12,000 years ago, long before the rise of Egypt's dynastic civilization in 3100 BC. That timeline places their construction at the end of the last ice age, a period when mainstream archaeology says humans were still hunter-gatherers, living in small tribal groups, with no cities, no writing, and no advanced technology. But Ambrosio says the evidence suggests otherwise. He argues that the pyramids show levels of engineering precision that later Egyptian builders never matched, and he claims the Egyptians didn't build the pyramids. They discovered them, appropriated them, and tried to replicate them. Let's start with the engineering. The Great Pyramid of Giza is one of the most precisely constructed buildings in human history. The base is almost perfectly level. We're talking about a margin of error of less than 2 centimeters across a base that's over 230 meters wide. That's absurdly accurate, even by modern construction standards. And when you take the idea of the ground slowly eroding below it over thousands of years, the thought that it may have once sat absolutely perfectly level is very believable. The stones are cut with incredible precision. The blocks fit together so tightly that you can't slide a piece of paper between them in many places. No mortar was used in the core structure. The weight of the stones alone holds it together. And the pyramid is aligned to true north with an accuracy of 1/15 of a degree, the kind of astronomical precision that requires sophisticated surveying tools and a deep understanding of celestial mechanics. Now, mainstream Egyptologists say the ancient Egyptians had these skills. They point to evidence of copper tools, ramps, and organizational capacity. They argue that the 4th dynasty builders were highly advanced for their time and fully capable of constructing the pyramids using the technology available to them. But Ambrosio asks, if the Egyptians built the Great Pyramid around 2600 BC, why didn't they ever replicate that level of precision? The pyramids built after the 4th dynasty are smaller, less precise, and in many cases, they collapsed or deteriorated much faster. The Pyramid of Djoser, which is considered earlier than Giza in the conventional timeline, is a step pyramid made of smaller stones with much less precision. Ambrosio argues this pattern doesn't make sense if Egyptian engineers was steadily improving. Instead, he says it looks like the Egyptians were trying to copy something they found and failed to match the original. Here's another key piece of Ambrosio's argument. No mummies have ever been found in the 3 main pyramids at Giza. The Giza pyramids are all traditionally believed to be royal tombs. Khufu, Khafre, and Menkaure were 4th dynasty pharaohs, and the pyramids were named after them. but no royal burial has ever been discovered inside any of them. In the Great Pyramid, there's an empty stone sarcophagus in the king's chamber, but no mummy, no burial goods, no inscriptions indicating it was used as a tomb. Ambrosio says this is significant. He argues that the discovery of an empty sarcophagus doesn't prove Khufu built the pyramid. It only proves that Khufu claimed it. And there's precedent for this. Throughout history, rulers have appropriated ancient structures and attached their names to them. Roman emperors did it. Medieval kings did it. Why wouldn't the Egyptian pharaohs? Now, mainstream Egyptologists counter this point by pointing to hieroglyphs found in a hidden chamber inside the Great Pyramid. The markings include what appears to be Khufu's name. Most scholars consider this evidence that Khufu commissioned the construction. But some researchers dispute the authenticity of those hieroglyphs. They claim the markings were added in the 19th century by explorers or forgers trying to prove the pyramid's connection to Khufu. Ambrosio cites this debate as evidence that the written proof of construction is lacking. Ambrosio also points to the Great Sphinx of Giza as supporting evidence for his timeline. The Sphinx is traditionally dated to around 2500 BC, roughly the same period as the pyramids. But geologists have noted something unusual about the erosion patterns on the Sphinx. The body of the Sphinx shows signs of water erosion, vertical fissures caused by heavy rain. Here's the problem. Egypt has been an arid desert for thousands of years. It hasn't experienced that kind of sustained heavy rainfall needed to cause that type of erosion since roughly 5 to 3000 BC. And even that's debated. If the Sphinx was built around 2500 BC, as the conventional timeline suggests, it shouldn't show water erosion. The climate was already dry by then. But if the Sphinx, and by extension the pyramids, were built during a wetter period, that pushes the construction date back thousands of years, possibly to a time when the Sahara wasn't a desert, a time when the region had rivers, lakes, and rainfall. Ambrosio argues this is consistent with a 12,000-year-old construction date. That timeline places the Sphinx and the pyramids in a period when the climate was very different. Mainstream archaeologists counter that the erosion could be caused by wind, sand, and other environmental factors over millennia. They argue that water erosion isn't the only explanation, but that debate continues. Now let's talk about the mythology. In ancient Egyptian texts, there's a concept called Zep-Tepi, or the first time. It's described as a golden age before human rule, a time when gods walked the earth and great works were accomplished. Some fringe historians argued that Zep-Tepi isn't mythology, it's history. They claim it refers to a real period roughly 12,000 years ago, when an advanced civilization existed. A civilization that built monumental structures, possessed advanced knowledge of mathematics and astronomy, and then disappeared, possibly due to a cataclysmic event. This ties into the broader theory of a lost supercivilization, sometimes called Atlantis, sometimes referred to as a pre-Diluvian culture that predates recorded history. Ambrosio connects the pyramids to this idea. He suggests they weren't built by the Egyptians. They were built by whoever came before, and the Egyptians inherited them, claimed them, and wove them into their own mythology. And here's where things get even more interesting. In early 2025, Italian researchers led by Corrado Malenga from the University of Pisa and Filippo Biondi from the University of Strathclyde announced they had discovered what they described as a massive underground network beneath the Giza pyramids. Using synthetic aperture radar, or SAR, combined with satellite data, they claimed to have detected structures more than 2,000 feet beneath the surface. They reported finding 8 vertical cylindrical shafts surrounded by spiral pathways connecting to large cubic chambers. Above these, they say there are 5 multi-level structures linked by passageways. The team described it as a vast subterranean complex, potentially as large as the pyramids themselves. Now, this claim is highly controversial. The research hasn't been peer-reviewed, and many experts have pushed back hard. Professor Lawrence Conyers, a radar specialist from the University of Denver, said it's not possible for SAR technology to penetrate that deeply into solid rock. He called the underground city claim a huge exaggeration. Dr. Zahi Mawaz, Egypt's former minister of antiquities, dismissed the findings entirely, calling them completely wrong and saying the techniques used were neither scientifically approved nor validated. But here's why it's relevant to Ambrosio's theory. If there are structures beneath the pyramids, even if they're not as massive as the Italian team claims, it raises the question, why would ancient builders construct an elaborate underground system beneath monuments that were supposedly just tombs? Ambrosio and other alternative historians argue that this fits the pattern of a much older, more complex site. They suggest the pyramids might not have been standalone structures. They might have been part of a larger architectural plan, one that included subterranean chambers, water systems, and features we haven't fully discovered yet. Some researchers have even speculated that these underground structures could be connected to the legendary Hall of Records, a mythical chamber said to contain the knowledge of a lost civilization. Whether the Italian team's findings hold up under scrutiny remains to be seen. But the fact that ground-penetrating technology is revealing something beneath Giza suggests there's more to the site than what's visible on the surface. And if Ambrosio is right, the pyramids are 12,000 years old, then these underground structures could predate the pyramids themselves. They could be the foundation of something much older. There's also evidence of similar megalithic structures around the world that show comparable engineering precision. Sacsayhuaman in Peru and Baalbek in Lebanon. These sites feature enormous, precisely cut stone blocks that seem to defy the technological capabilities of the cultures that are credited with building them. Ambrosio and other alternative historians argue that this points to a global network of advanced builders, a lost civilization that left its mark across continents before vanishing from history. So what do mainstream Egyptologists say about all this? They reject it almost entirely. They argue that the conventional timeline is supported by multiple lines of evidence. Radiocarbon dating of organic material found in the pyramids, hieroglyphic records, tool marks consistent with copper and bronze tools, and a progression of pyramid construction techniques visible in earlier structures. They say the engineering precision of the Great Pyramid is impressive, but not impossible. The Egyptians had the knowledge, the labor force, and the organizational capacity to build it. They point out that smaller, less precise pyramids came before Giza, not after. The step pyramids in earlier attempts show a learning curve. Giza represents the peak of that development. Later pyramids were smaller and less ambitious because the political and economic conditions changed, not because the knowledge was lost. As for the water erosion on the Sphinx, they argue it's been misinterpreted. Wind erosion, chemical weathering, and other factors can produce similar patterns. And as for Zep-Tepi, they say it's mythology, a symbolic story about the origins of Egyptian civilization, not a historical account of a real advanced culture. But let's entertain the possibility. What if Ambrosio is right? What if the Great Pyramids are 12,000 years old? What if they were built by a civilization we don't know about? That would rewrite human history. It would mean that advanced civilizations existed long before we thought they did. That the timeline we've been taught, hunter-gatherers transitioning to agriculture around 10,000 BC, cities emerging around 4,000 BC, writing developing around 3,200 BC, is incomplete. It would mean that knowledge was lost, that a cataclysm, whether a flood, an asteroid impact, or a climate shift, wiped out a highly developed culture, leaving behind only fragments, megalithic structures, myths, and legends. And it would raise the question, what else don't we know? If a civilization capable of building the pyramids existed 12,000 years ago and then just disappeared, what happened to them? Where did they go? And what did they know that we've forgotten. Antonio Ambrosio's paper is not peer-reviewed. His claims are controversial. Mainstream archaeology rejects them. But the questions he's raising aren't new. They've been asked by researchers like Graham Hancock, Robert Schoch, and John Anthony West for decades. The precision of the pyramids, the lack of mummies, the water erosion on the Sphinx, the global presence of megalithic structures, the mythological references to a lost golden age. These are real anomalies and they deserve investigation. Whether Ambrosio is right or wrong, the fact that we're still debating the origins of the pyramids in 2026 tells us something important. We don't have all the answers. All right, Jake, CJ, what do you guys think? Are the pyramids 12,000 years old, or is this just alternative history running wild with gaps in the archaeological record? Not all at once.
CJ should go first.
Hold on, I'm pulling some stuff up so I can make some points. So you go ahead.
I think he's doing the same.
Yeah.
You guys are both
right.
look like you're just typing away.
So I do have this already up. Right. So went ahead and asked Perplexity if heavy objects sitting in sand will self-level. And essentially, no, they won't self-level without some sort of outside thing. Vibrations, water flow, tides, waves, or vibration or loading changes, right? Unintended vibrations. So I saw the words unintended vibrations and I was like, does Egypt get earthquakes? Egypt gets tons of earthquakes, right? And then, I don't know if you guys remember, because this guy freaking vanished off the face of the earth, but I'm going to show you this real quick. This
You
dude
gotta
literally...
share the actual screen, bud.
I will. In a second. So this guy here...
Yeah, this guy's slick.
Yeah. He
did it all himself.
Yeah, like, look at these techniques this gentleman was using to figure out how to move. And, like, he's doing it smaller scale, but, like, look at the weight he's moving by himself. Now, imagine having 20 or 30 guys and a same set of devices moving larger
Yeah. There's a few issues with this, okay? He's doing all of this on structures that are built with modern screws and drill guns. You know, it's and modern 2x4s or other pieces of wood or material, right? It's yes, the concept is there, but I
You could
do
use
not
wood pegs
believe
to achieve what he put together with screws and stuff in here. He could do
agree.
that with wooden pegs. You could do that with pine pitch, and like this stuff. Like, they had copper, they had bronze. They could have made those pulleys, right? Maybe we would have found them, maybe not. Maybe they would have melted that down and created jewelry when it was all said and done. Like, there's no reason they couldn't have made these devices. Would they be as structurally sound, and would they have needed way more frequent repair? Absolutely. But there's no reason they couldn't have made that stuff. What I'm saying is this guy is moving tremendous amounts of weight with very minimal effort.
100% true.
By himself. You know, so I'm not really sure that I buy that pyramids and the Sphinx are 12,000 years old. The only thing really compelling about that is the water erosion, but I'm just as likely to believe that bored primitive people stood on top of it and just pissed down the side of the Sphinx whenever they wanted to. Like,
maybe,
you know, like,
honestly, maybe.
it does when we have explanations like that available, and the inaccuracy of things like carbon dating and stuff like that, and like I know of the Anunnaki, and I know that like they believe like people like Hermes Trismegistus was from Atlantis and he was one of the Anunnaki and really immortal and took on new forms as lives ended or whatever, and like I know all of the lore behind that and whatnot. I still don't think the pyramids and Sphinx are 12,000 years old. I think it's just as likely that primitive people used primitive devices like that, put things into position, and earthquakes over 3,000 years settled them out and made them level to that degree. I think nature's fully capable of doing that. If you have enough weight on something, it will self-settle.
Yeah. So one thing, right? It's not necessarily the movement of the blocks while it's there. It's the getting the blocks to where the location was that is the big mystery. Okay. Most of the blocks for the Giza pyramids were actually harvested from the Giza plateau.
All right, like miles north and had to be brought down a river and all that. Yeah.
15 kilometers were the furthest away. Now the outside of the pyramid, okay, the outside, I want to say, I don't have it in my notes, but it was like a white outer casing, the stone on the outside of the pyramids. They found where those were cut from over 500 miles to the south. And those are gigantic blocks as well. In fact, they were even heavier than the stuff that was quarried on the Giza plateau.
So I'm not saying blocks weren't cut from that stone. How do they know for a fact that those blocks came from there? They took one of them off the pyramid, took it down there, and matched it up like a puzzle piece?
You could. I mean, the best thing to do would be composition matching. You know, everything is slightly different no matter where you get. You get limestone from here, and in Wisconsin, you go to limestone there in Pennsylvania, and you can look at the mineral composition of it and find that if a random piece of limestone ended up in Florida, that it most likely came from here in Wisconsin than it did in Pennsylvania.
Right. Now I understand that, and I'm not saying that I don't believe that some high tech civilization maybe jump dimensions and help them put these together. I just don't think it was 12,000 years ago.
I also don't think it was 12,000 years ago. If I have to be brutally honest, I don't think that number is correct. I'm just going off of what was written in the guy's paper. That's
if we've got interdimensional travelers now, they could have had it then. If they have things like tractor beams or whatever, or high-tech lasers for cutting shit and whatever. Because wasn't it like the granite or whatever that they're cut from, like the bronze or copper tools they were using wouldn't have had the hardness capability of cutting through that stuff or whatever?
Yeah, a lot of that we would need diamond-tipped saw blades to go through some of that shit.
And for cutting stone like that now, I know that we use high-pressure water primarily.
Yes, we do.
And they would not have had that technology. So, okay, interdimensional beings cross over. They use the laser high-pressure technology or whatever.
I'm not going the interdimensional being route on that one.
Or aliens, whatever.
I like the advanced civilization. I think that's a very interesting case, and I think there's a lot of evidence for it around the world and through time. But I don't know about the 12,000 years. I feel like Jake might be ready to jump in though.
You see me chomping at the bit over here?
I see you.
Okay, well, you know where I'm gonna go. Where am I gonna go, CJ?
To young Earth theory and the Bible.
Hey, how'd you know? Oh, that's weird. Creepy.
Okay. I've known you for 8.5 years now, I think. Is
that long? No way.
No, the show's only 5.5 years old.
5.5.
You've known him for 5 years.
Listen, they can say the pyramids are 12,000 years old. I've known Jake for 8.5 years. I can say that. If they can make up numbers, I can make up numbers.
There was no photographic evidence of the first time that we met. Oh wait, yes, there was. Okay, so
there's a timestamped Facebook post somewhere,
right? So this is quoting out of Matthew 24 verse 37. The apostles following around Jesus were asking him when the end would be, and this was his response. He said here in verse 37, going into 38, it says, and 39, it says, "But as the days of Noah were, so also will the coming of the Son of Man be. For as in the days before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day that Noah entered the ark, and they did not know until the flood came and took them all away. So also will the coming of the Son of Man be." And then he goes into explaining it more, but he gives a couple examples there of basically what they were doing before the flood, and they're eating and drinking and feasting and marrying each other. Okay, great. Um, it's also in the Bible that God looked upon the hearts of men and saw that they were nothing but evil all the time and felt sorrow and regret in the creation of man, but that he favored Noah and his family because of their righteousness. But it's just seeing something like that, and I agree. I agree that the Egyptians didn't build the pyramids. I think they moved in and that they probably graffitied all over the pyramids in the same way, dumb tourists do today. They go to places that have, whether they're granite faces or they're half dome or they're a structure that someone's built, and they graffiti all over them because people suck. And they try to graffiti isn't just necessarily in a way to deface something, but you see graffiti all over certain neighborhoods, and it's because they're trying to claim that territory as their own, which is ridiculous because they're doing it in the city built by other people, right? But people do that all the time. And ancient cultures, I don't believe, were any different. But in this whole thing, but as the days of Noah were, so also will the coming of the Son of Man be. And he's talking about when he comes back. They weren't only marrying each other and having parties and feasting. They were doing other things during this amount of time that they inhabited the earth before they were taken away. And I think that they were doing things like this, things that we can't even comprehend. And because he's describing what's going to happen in the future, at that time when he's saying this to these people, they had no idea how to build the pyramids. And here with all of our advanced technology, we still don't know exactly how to build the pyramids, although we could replicate it in a smaller form like that gentleman did on that video that you showed. If we but that's based off of the technology we have now, knowing where true north is, knowing, what's completely level. Like, how do we measure that? We could do that now on a smaller scale. Maybe this is saying that we are going to get to that point where we could do similar things and have full knowledge, and not only have full knowledge, but in the same way we have that massive Bass Pro Shop in wherever, Vegas or wherever it is, that's a giant glass pyramid. We actually do build a pyramid. And then it happens, right? and then it happens because we're at this point now where, in the same way, atheism really didn't exist until after the atomic bomb was made, when people decided, oh, we're God now. We don't need the idea of God because that's us. We're going to get to this point where we're going to be so horribly evil as humankind, and we're going to be able to defy physics and what we can do, or what we can create, and just get to this point where God's going to look at us and say, and that's enough of that. Wrap it up. I don't know. I think that there's some parallels here, but yeah, I'm absolutely the people before the flood weren't a bunch of cavemen, because if you look at animals can't determine evil. They can't, even if a dog bites you, he doesn't do it out of evil. He does it out of instinct. You can't look at primitive people and put that sort of weight on them and say, oh, it's because they're evil, or they, evolutionarily just running off of instinct. There had to have been something more. Was it the technology they were doing?
I've met some chihuahuas that are real assholes.
What's that?
So I've met some chihuahuas that are real assholes.
Chihuahuas are from hell. Everyone knows that. But besides them, God gave the devil the ability to create one thing, and he created chihuahuas. Okay. So besides them, I think that, yeah, I have no doubt. And I was actually just discussing this with another Christian coworker that I have this week. And I was like, yeah, I don't think that the Egyptians built the pyramids, and I don't think the Jews were the ones that built them either. The Bible says that the Jews were in captivity or enslaved in Egypt. It does not say that they built the pyramids. It doesn't say that the Egyptians built the pyramids. It's like, and then, if there's even a shadow of a doubt that the hieroglyphs on the inside of the pyramids didn't come from the Egyptians by people that aren't Egyptian, that actually says a lot. Because of course they want to safeguard their history and say, no, 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 no. Our ancient people were amazing, way better than you guys. You can't even figure it out. We can't even figure it out. That's how good they were. And then you get people from the outside of that, and that's why we have peer-reviewed studies that say, these look like chisel marks from modern day tools, not from ancient Egyptians that were able, they could make this crazy precise cut, these crazy precise cuts on these massive blocks and transport them, but their tooling looks like the garbage we make now and it was bought from Harbor Freight. Come on now. Like, it's like that's where that happens, right? That's where that peer review comes in, and then someone comes in and they're like, if this was able to be done, then everything that they were doing from that technology period must have been amazing, And I suppose you could say that from like right now. It's like, why could we, shoot sound at people and make them feel like their skin's on fire, but I'm buying tools from craftsman tools for my toolbox? You could say that, but if it's in the same realm of like the thing, right? The pyramids, why is the tooling that they're using to write down how they built it and their history is trash compared to how they built the thing, right? It would be very strange to see that if the scientists that created that, heat wave death ray thing that they're shooting at protesters are also using tools from Harbor Freight. Would be very strange, right? So versus something else, right? So I think that there's a lot to be said with that, things aren't lining up. And it's probably because those two things, the pyramids being built and the things written on the pyramids, are from two totally different time periods and two totally different cultures. And I agree that, yeah, you can say things will self-level over time and things will, kind of right themselves over time. And I agree with that, but you can't really disagree with how true to true north it is. Like, that's pretty insane. And then that later on, other renditions of the same thing were smaller and crappier in their construction. It's like, if anything, they would have gotten better and been like, okay, we're not going to make this giant one, but we're going to make another one. But it would be in the exact same format of just a marvelous spectacle. It wouldn't be a crappier design, as if someone was trying to replicate that.
It would be the iPhone 72.
Now, whether it was 12,000 years, I don't know. What is it?
From everything Jake just said, I have this like visual of ancient Egyptians as like a bunch of Donald Trumps. We have the best pyramids, the greatest pyramids. The Aztecs pyramids don't point true north, but our pyramids do.
I mean, you could look at the Aztecs too. I mean, the Aztecs, they have had some pretty cool pyramids, and the culture thought that if they didn't kill people, the sun wouldn't come up. That doesn't say.
Well, the Aztecs were also significantly more modern times than
people to me. That says people that just walked upon this in the same way when I'm, when I'm playing a video game in Ark and I see a structure that the game makers built, and I'm like, I'm going to make this my home. Why would I make walls? I've got this to live in. I'll put up one door and I'm good. It's the
and nobody can mesh through this.
It's the same exact process. Here. It's just in a people moving from one place to another sort of a thing. I think
they just showed up. This is mine now.
Yeah, people act the exact same whether it's on a video game or in real life, right? In the same way, if something were to occur and say, you're I don't know, you stumbled across a really nicely built home in an area where someone just gave you the land, would you then say, well, I'm not going to take that. I'm going to build my own and waste a bunch of money, a bunch of time if you could just move into the space, right? It's like, I think that there's a lot of that throughout the world where people are like, I don't know how this happened. Well, it's because it wasn't us that did that. Maybe people, sure, but not our people in this, what we could call the timeline that we have now. A cataclysmic event that was so great. Not only did it wipe out the technologies and the people, but also everything they wrote down, because most assuredly they must have. But it's gone now. And
of the ocean.
Well,
when the ocean
to that, I mean, I can
pulled
say
all that shit into the Mariana.
I can say, I mean, I know through modern archaeology, we find things like swords and stuff from the Roman era and everything, and they have to be perfectly preserved. And even then, you know, their preservation state has to be perfect, because even then we get it out and it's like a chunk of what it once was, right? And it's like, well, we can date this back and say that this was probably built during this time frame, or we found this in we found a Viking longship, and these were inside of, what was once the wood of that ship. So this is probably a burial thing, right? We can see that. But then when things are exposed to the elements, the fence from the base that I just left in Southern California 2 years ago when I got in the Navy, the fence was like 10 years old, but it was exposed to sea air, and all of the brackets holding the links onto the posts were gone. Like just chunks of just rust on the ground. It was crazy. I took a picture of it and I sent it to some people. I was like, yeah, that's well built. Good job, military. But it's true. I mean, the thing had only been there for like 10 years, but the sea air had just eaten it away. And that's modern iron, right?
Changing sides. I'm on Team Jake
and
now.
Stuff, right? And so it's like even things will get lost to time, and it's only because of certain. And I'm not going to agree that those aliens from Peru are real because of the cave they're found in. It's BS.
Listen, man.
But
I also agree with Jake on that one. I think those shit's fake too.
But
I don't think they are.
It's not crazy to think of. And even like, shoot, in Virginia, there's Jamestown there. And you go over there and they're like, yeah, this is where a building used to be. And it's like, well, how do you know? It's like, well, there's 4x4 post holes. It's like, all right, well, where's the posts? Well, they're gone. This is 250 years ago. They're not here anymore. It was wood, it just cut from trees lying about. But we could tell that the building was here because of where the holes are in the ground. And it's like, and that was only 250 years, not, 2,000, 3,000, 5,000, 10,000, 12,000, 20,000 years ago, right? It's like, it's remarkable we get anything from that time frame.
Aliens up.
So, yeah, I mean, even outside of the Bible and what I believe on that, I do think that the reason why we can't come up with the things now of exactly how this was built, maybe from a smaller scale, but not that sort of scale, is because we weren't the ones that did that. Otherwise, there would probably be, a timeline of journal entries over time saying this is how this happened, right? Unless there was cultures back in the day that are the same as our cultures these days, where they move into an area and destroy everything because, their religion says to do so, which is
before Jeremy tries to shame us over these aliens. Just a quick follow-up question. All that stuff is gone, right? And and a lot of that does make sense, that a lot of it would have eroded or, time just absolutely destroyed it. Yeah. Right. But if all that stuff was existing en masse, they would have needed a lot of those tools in order to make those things. We should have at least found one.
And
we find giant. What I'm saying is we find giant petrified Viking turds.
True.
Literally giant pieces of Viking poop. Well, we found that. We should have found a metal tool somewhere, right?
And that's not to say that, I mean, think of the Sahara, right? The reason why you get these crazy looking sand dunes that kind of build up and shift and stuff like that is because of the wind. What's to say that one of those tools doesn't exist, but it's buried underneath 200 feet of sand?
That's fair. That's fair.
Or it's in a cave somewhere. We found the Dead Sea Scrolls that, show that the Bible wasn't just made up, but it was written down at some point. But we found those in a cave, and that was in the 1900s. I'm pretty sure.
And Jeremy's fake pregnant aliens that he's about to try to shame us with.
Why couldn't it be that, yes, those tools do exist, but we just haven't discovered them yet, or they're being hidden by a culture that doesn't want them to be found because it would destroy a narrative or whatever, right? I don't know. That's how I feel about it.
We find one of them and the government shows them give us that, give us that.
I mean, it'd be like Smithsonian, right? If you found a freaking dinosaur skeleton in your backyard trying to dig a trench, they'd probably come in there and take it from you.
Well, you find one of these ancient tools that will totally reveal what you're saying, and the government just sweeps in, takes the tool, shoots the guy in the face, puts him in a hole somewhere, and then everybody's gone. No one knows any different.
I mean, that's a problem in California, right? Because people will, the city will commission a new high rise to be built, and they'll go in there to level the ground with skid steers and bulldozers and things like that, and then find whale bones, and then immediately the government will swoop in there to excavate all of it. and then make sure the site's good before they're allowed to continue, and that process might take a year. I mean, it happens pretty routinely. So even if you were to find something like this, that's not to say that the federal government wouldn't be like, well, this is ours now. What are you going to do about it? Killdozer us? You know? Well,
They should.
actually,
They should.
you know?
Give me my fucking ancient tool bag and just start running stuff over.
That's right.
All right, Jeremy, you can shame us now.
No, I'm not. I just there's a lot of misconceptions out there about the Nazca, about the Peruvian mummies, right? When we first talked about it, Jake, these guys right here were the ones that we were talking about, and these were the more common photos being shown around. Those are fake.
Oh, they are fake.
Those ones, these two right here, are fake. These are the Peruvian tridactyl mummies that everyone is talking about. This is what actually came out. This is what the mainstream media attached to. Not the correct things.
Not necessarily. Those were the ones that the government said, this is what we have, and they had their fake scientists standing around it.
That's what the mainstream media told you. So there's actually a total, I believe, of 6 or 7 of these now. This is Montserrat. This is one of the more famous ones that people are talking about, and then there's also Maria. Now I'm going to bring up.
They look pretty big. Could they be just jacked up looking people? A lot of inbreeding?
No, I don't think so, man. And I'm going to show you.
They shove chicken eggs up their butts?
No, I was listening to JRE the other day, and they were talking about how like the cranial space has more volume than the humans does, which isn't actually possible. Like even if you have like one of those cultures where they shape the head or whatever, like you wouldn't be able to increase volume that.
Correct. So listen, just check out this website, man.
Yeah, I'm watching.
So the other CJ, the episode that you're talking about when I talked about it before, this is the website that I got a lot of that information from, and this is just the breakdown of the Maria tridactyl. Like I said, there's 6, 7, maybe 8 of them.
Is Maria the pregnant one?
Yes, Maria is the pregnant one. This is a scan of her right here. You can see a full 3-dimensional scan of her.
Creepy looking bitch. Holy shit.
Yeah. That's her butthole.
But that's the important part.
But you can see it. The reason why they're called tridactyls is because they have 3 toes, or 3 appendages on their feet and 3 appendages on their hands. Here's a side view of Maria. Now this is tridactyls.org. Highly recommend to anybody who's interested in this topic to go check this out. It's very, very interesting stuff.
I went to high school with a guy that had 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot. And he was like 6'7", I think. He was huge, and it was a genetic defect through all of the men in his family. If he died and someone found a skeleton, would they just call him a hexadactyl and say he was an alien?
Well, there's a lot of structural differences between the tridactyls and typical humans. Okay, a lot of different things. I'm not going to get into the breakdown. We're already 2.5 hours.
We're doing terrible with the hour-long deadline. There's 4 episodes in a row that have gone way over.
Terrible, right? Okay, so here's the other specimens: Montserrat, Maria, Joy, Paloma, Santiago, Sebastian, Antonio, and then there's the 2-foot.
There you go. See, they're people. They got people names.
They just like found them in the caves with a "Hello, my name is" tag on there.
Right? Those stickers stuck to their chests. Yeah.
These aren't aliens. These were Costco employees that got lost.
Yeah,
right. You guys are wild. But yeah, I highly recommend anybody that is interested in this. There is incredible data on this now, and I 100% believe that these are real biological entities. Whether they are deformed humans, I don't know, but there's even medical hardware installed in them, like as in somebody
So
did
what you're saying
surgery
is,
on these things while they were alive.
so what you're saying is that these are the pre-flood chimeras.
They may, and that is something that has been passed around as
Nephilim.
a potential. I don't know if they necessarily match the description of a what a lot of people would title a Nephilim. But this is there's a lot coming out about this, guys, and a lot is being blocked here in the United States. You have to go to outside sources. A lot of Spanish-speaking websites.
Well, I'm sure, because this probably comes from a culture that's mostly Catholic, and this is and we live in a society they're trying so hard to make it as atheistic as possible.
Can I go back to something Jake mentioned earlier? Just to kind of ask a question. So when we were talking about the hands earlier, right, and the 5 digits and how that's pretty consistent across not only like humanity but like other species as well, and we kind of had a discussion about like why having hands that way like matter, because like we have our hands are set up the way they are
We're their
because
thumbs.
we need to manipulate objects in complicated manners and whatnot. How is that hand setup advantageous to manipulating complicated? It looks like they were just swinging from
obviously
trees.
it
That's what it
wasn't, 'cause they're
looks
all
like. It looks like
dead.
they were hanging upside down in trees. Those are bat people.
I
Like,
mean,
what's going on
I
here?
guess it doesn't, or it isn't, because they're all dead and there's none of them left. So I guess
true, true. But like, but if like, you look at the form they're put in or whatever, and they're like in the caves, that's like what is that? What do they call that? Like, it's like a complicated form of burial, which is like one of the main signs of like intelligence and community and like advanced civilization and all that, right? Like
the big
people
feet
coming together, something like that. I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me that they would have 3 fingers, no thumbs, and then be a complicated form of life that it existed long enough to evolve to that form. It doesn't make sense to me. More like Jake was mentioning earlier.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Like some sort of weird genetic birth defect that ran in a specific bloodline, and now they no longer exist because those defects weren't advantageous and they weren't able to spread their genes. They died out as they should have.
Or they're like creatures from the descent.
Right.
Here's I want to share this real quick.
They don't need thumbs because all they're doing is climbing cave rocks.
Yeah, exactly. They're climbing over rocks, getting miners that are trapped in the miners, not miners. No Epstein over here. They're getting
that one could have been Epstein. That's why she was pregnant.
Well, I just want to show the file verification down here just for the people that this matters to. Like Jake did a version of this with the NASA photos earlier, so I just want to make sure people can see that there's a lot of stuff here where they're very, very open about their research. Now, whether or not this is, like you said, a mutant human, I know a lot more about this than what we're talking about right now, and I'm for the sake of it being already 2 hours and 15 minutes into the show, I'm not going to dive into it. Maybe we can on another day.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
But
that's pretty dope. That's strange. I like it.
I wouldn't mind diving into it. I still don't think that's real. I really don't.
I definitely think that it's a biological entity. And when you start seeing pictures like, where is it?
Could it be an animal, like a monkey that just, maybe.
Well, there's dozens
tail,
of species of hominids, right? Dozens of species, but but if you look at those different dozens of species, we don't have 3-fingered, 3-toed.
But look, man,
those are bat fingers. Like, look at them.
This is not set up like a human. It's got a joint here, 1, 2, 3, 4 on each finger.
So they're lemurs. They're not humans. They're lemurs. Big lemurs.
Maybe they were. Maybe they were. Maybe they were fur, but or maybe they had fur. But there's still a lot of things about them, man. I'm telling you, there's a lot of things about these things that are very odd, very eerie, very. What's the word I'm thinking of?
Those have eyes. Their parents were from West Virginia.
No. My brain's fried because of you guys. Canny. It's very uncanny.
Yeah.
Anyways,
that looks like plaster.
But it's not. I'm telling you, man, it's not. Like, you should like take some time, man. Check these things out. There is a ton of stuff on this website where it gets into like the biological breakdown, the studies, and they're updating it all the time. All the time, they're updating the information on this website. It's absolutely incredible. I have this thing bookmarked on my computer just because I like checking it out.
I'll be fine with it as long as they don't try to say that this is what we evolved from. Because it wouldn't make any sense to go from the previous thing of like, oh, we found a tooth and we built an entire skull around it with this giant cranium thing to then this that has less toes and fingers and then back to the other thing, right? Type stuff.
Yeah.
It would just like, I could totally see like this is another species and then they got examples of
like existed
species.
Alongside us, like Neanderthals and the
No,
Denisovans.
no, I mean,
Denisovans, is that what they're called?
Yeah. You're right. That is Denisovans.
If the Neanderthal existed, I believe that they were just another type of primate, not an evolutionary step. But
well, there's like over 30 different hominids or whatever that they have now, or it's a crazy number.
It's a lot
of various hominids that they have.
Yeah.
They range from like 3 feet tall to 6 feet tall over the course of whatever. So there's like
either way
a species of hominid. That
the problem is that people range from 3 feet tall to. There's a guy in my Bible study this morning that's 6'9".
Damn,
it's like people like that exist.
He's an Anunnaki.
That's a big dude, man.
Crazy. That guy was.
He's in disguise.
Tall.
I think we need to bring him in and start grilling him about aliens. We might give something up.
Anyways. Didn't mean to start all that, but just because it's been brought up multiple times now, I was like, let's just throw this out there.
Helps me out.
If you didn't want us to ask questions, why you show it to us?
I listened to your thing that you had when you were kind of running on your own there for a little bit, and you were talking about the tridactyls. I was like, he's bringing this garbage up again. I'm in my garage by myself, like looking at my car, like, really? So yeah, that makes sense. I'm glad you did that because I thought you were just crazy, and I was like, This is the hill he's dying on. This is
it. Yeah. So just for one more time, for shits and giggles, this is what Jake thought I was dying on. This is what he was like. This is what he's dying. This right here.
Oh yeah, those things.
Because that's what we originally reported on. We reported on that because that is what was out. That was the information that was out, was these stupid fucking things. And yes, those are obviously fake. Like, that's stupid. Anyways.
It looks like they made them out of Tupperware and plaster.
And they probably did.
Sorry, I was muted there. But no, Jeremy was like, this is it. This is the missing link. I was like, no, Jeremy, this is BS. That's lies right there. That's what that
it's deceit.
No.
Well, yeah. Oh, it was such a confusing time because there was multiple reports out about multiple different things. People were doing tests on these yes, they were made of chicken bones. Yes, what we just looked at right there was made of bullshit. But there were also reports coming out of the authentic tridactyls as well. Like, they were both coming out at the exact same time. And so the lore connects in a way. Like, there is some lore behind this, that people created those bullshit ones to mimic the real tridactyls to sell as like souvenirs and stuff like that.
Oh.
They just had like an ancient guy from like Silence of the Lamb, like an ancient...
You should, dude.
An ancient wild bill, and he just like pieced bones together, and he was like, I need skin. And just like wrapped it around there and then like folded them up and put them in the cave. And it was like, it was performance art back then.
I'm going to 3D print one and have it standing right there with a tag on it that says, hello, my name is bullshit.
All right. Before I do the outro, does anybody else have anything else to say? Final words?
Tridactyls are fake.
No, they're not. I'm not diving into
space.
This anymore.
Great episode.
Right. Yeah, I thought it was too.
No, this was a lot of fun, guys. I had a good time tonight.
So that's it for this week's Fringe News Briefing. We covered a lot of ground today. Scientists in Romania revived 5,000-year-old bacteria from an ice cave that's resistant to 10 modern antibiotics, raising questions about antibiotic resistance, ancient life, and whether panspermia theory might explain where the genetic code came from. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth confirmed the Pentagon is actively working on Trump's UFO declassification order. AERO's caseload has surpassed 2,000 cases. The disclosure timeline is moving forward. And the question now is what actually gets released and when. NASA released stunning images of a brain-shaped nebula called the exposed cranium, reviving theories that the universe itself might be a living, conscious organism. Whether it's just pareidolia or something deeper, the images are haunting. And we went deep on Antonio Ambrosio's paper claiming the Great Pyramids of Giza are 12,000 years old, built by a lost super civilization with advanced technology. The engineering precision, the lack of mummies, the water erosion on the Sphinx, the underground structures beneath Giza, and the Egyptian mythology of Zep-Tepe all point to something we don't fully understand. Mainstream archaeology rejects the claim, but the questions remain. So what do you think? Are we on the verge of rewriting human history? Is the Pentagon about to confirm what UFO researchers have been saying for decades? Is the universe alive? Leave a comment. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, X, or YouTube. I want to hear your thoughts. If you enjoyed this episode, hit that subscribe button and leave us a rating and review. It helps more people find the show. Next week, another briefing. More stories from the fringes. Another deep dive into something the mainstream won't touch. Until then, keep questioning, keep investigating, and remember, the most important mysteries aren't the ones we've solved. They're the ones we're brave enough to ask about. This has been Infinite Rabbit Hole. I'm Jeremy Social with Jake and CJ. And until next time, travelers, we'll see you right here in the next fork in the path of the Infinite Rabbit Hole. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Gotta say bye.
Well,
Bye. All right.
well.